everybody, and welcome to Called Up, the Prospects Podcast. I am Chris Peters of FloHockey, joined as always by my co-host and partner in crime, Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects. Cam, how the heck are you today?
Doing great, buddy. The NHL's back. Hockey season is officially upon us. Feeling good about it.
Feeling good. I agree. And there are only a few more leagues left to launch. We got the AHL starting this weekend. We've got the ECHL and the SPHL starting next weekend. And then the hockey family will be made whole here as we get going. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about the start of the NHL season, a number of surprising rookies, guys we haven't talked about on the podcast, some that we have, but a lot more that we haven't, that maybe were surprise additions to NHL rosters this year. We're going to talk a little bit about their chances as they go forward, and a lot there. Also, with the AHL season starting up, we definitely want to talk about some of the top prospects you're going to be able to watch right here on FloHockey, and really a star-studded rookie class on top of some of the players that are coming back to the league this season. So a lot to get to there. And we're also going to talk about the very exciting and really popular and widely viewed debut of Gavin McKenna in college hockey, and get our thoughts about a week after the fact, but close to his next weekend of college hockey. So we will certainly talk about that. But before we get to all those topics, Cam, before we get to everything, let's pause for just a second for some words from FloHockey.
Hockey hits harder on Flo. The AHL, the ECHL, the USHL, the O, the Q. So don't just watch hockey, live it. Get your annual Flo subscription now.
Oh, and I cannot sing the praises of that annual sub enough. I have been watching some great hockey. I saw, Cam, maybe one of the best junior hockey games I've seen in a while. OHL game, Brantford versus Windsor, the top two teams in the OHL going head-to-head. It was an epic showdown. It went to a shootout. Windsor ends up winning it. But, man, what an incredible game of hockey that was. And it was on FloHockey. So get that annual subscription. You're going to see a lot of great prospects here. But Cam, let's turn our attention to the big leagues for a second. Let's talk about the guys that made the opening night rosters, many of whom either have or will make their NHL debuts this week. And I want to start with the surprises, the guys that maybe we didn't expect. And I'll tell you, when his name was called at the NHL draft, there's one guy that I did not think we would be talking about as even an option for the opening night roster, and that is Ben Kindel of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He makes the opening night roster. He plays in their opener. I mean, were you as surprised as I was at this point?
I was surprised when they called his name at, what was that, 11th?
Yeah.
Like that alone was surprising. Yeah. Right? Yeah, that's right too. Moving picks around to get him, and obviously he was their guy. But like, we saw him up close and personal at the U18s last spring, right before the draft. He is not a big kid, you know. He is slight. He has a lot of muscle mass that he needs to add on to his body, and he looked like he was going to be a few years away. Not to say he's going to stick with the team long term here, but I mean, credit where credit is due. He is very crafty, very slippery, loads of offensive potential there that is obviously shining through at camp and in preseason. And the team is a team in transition, looking to get younger, looking to build for the future, looking for offense. Why not have him hanging around, soaking up off of Gino and Sid and all those great, Hall of Fame guys? It's hard to put him in a worse spot. That's for a better spot, I should say. There's many worse spots in the league to land. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you're insulated a little bit. You get the chance to learn from those players. Like I as you alluded to, maybe he doesn't stay for the whole time. Maybe we'll see kind of where things go. I think if you're the Penguins at this point, you have to be careful with these prospects. I think that we've seen a number of rebuilding teams rush guys into the positions, and I don't think that, like, there are a couple of, extenuating factors too, a couple of injuries here and there. Brian Rust goes down. They didn't have him. Rutger McGroarty wasn't available for a chunk of training camp and different things. So there's a lot of things that are probably going to ultimately, I think, send him back. But at the same time, he did earn it. Like, he had a good camp, and then he played 15 minutes and 11 seconds in their opener against the New York Rangers, a 3-0 win for Dan Muse and the Pittsburgh Penguins over Mike Sullivan and the New York Rangers, if you wanted that little sip of tea. But shots on goal, 1 shot on goal, like didn't get on the score sheet, but he didn't look out of place. So we'll see what happens as things go on. But Ben Kindel, that was one where I was like, if you would have given me a number, and actually you put it on Twitter, the 5 guys that we had from this draft class that are making the opening day rosters from the last draft class, and we were talking about it being a weak class. You got Braden Coots, who we're going to talk about next, but you got him, you got Schaefer, you got Misa, and then you've also got, who am I leaving out now? Why am I leaving somebody out? We had Misa, Kindle,
Brady Martin,
and of course Brady Martin. So Brady Martin makes it and playing in a potentially elevated role. So a lot there. That was really surprising. You also put, and we'll talk about this later, but how many guys that were eligible for the Canadian World Junior team that are currently on NHL rosters? It's a lot. It's an awful lot.
Oh boy.
But and the thing is, like, going back to Kindle, we were, I was at the junior evaluation camp, didn't look any better, or didn't look worse, but didn't look any better than a lot of the players there. Was a guy that I would say was on the Canadian bubble, and now he's on an NHL roster that usually is like, you're in, so
Yeah.
So we'll see. But let's talk about a guy close to home from you. And you pegged it. You said, I think he's going to stick, and he did. Braden Coots. We talked about him. To me, surprising really only because of his age. We know the way that he plays. I think he has an endearing style that coaches will be able to trust. I don't think he tries to do too much. And because of that self-awareness that I think is a big part of who he is and what he does, now he's got a chance. He's got a chance to stick. What are your thoughts, in terms of, the reasons that he's there, and then really the opportunity that really does exist for him in Vancouver?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head a few times there with the endearing playing style. He is so speedy. He's so mature in defensive positioning. He knows where to be on the ice, and he has offensive upside as well. So, he found some kind of late chemistry in camp and preseason with Lekkerimäki. And so I think that's going to be the line tonight when the Canucks open their season, with Evander Kane on the far side, kind of acting as the big brother, someone to look out for these two younger guys, these smaller younger guys. But it also, he played his way onto this team. There's no questioning that. He was great in training camp. He continued to play well in the preseason, even as rosters dwindled. He got lucky on a couple goals that made those preseason stats look good, but still he was putting himself in good positions. But he also can thank a very weak center depth chart in Vancouver, which was fueled further with Teddy Bluger going down with injury too, right? So now it's like, it's Pettersson at the top. It's Philip Hedl as your 2C, Braden Coots as your 3C, and Atu Ratu as your 4th-C. It's like, that does not inspire a lot of confidence, I wouldn't say, as for a team that's looking to be a playoff team. But that said, if Hedl can be a true second-line center, well, Coots on a third line with a Lekkerimäki, who's a pure goal scorer, one of the best finishers on the team, and then Evander Kane. It's like, if he can hang, I could actually see them keeping him past that 9-game mark. But I do really think that he has to prove it over those 9 games, because the default will be, hey, if it's not a slam dunk, send it back to junior. Yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting to watch that. I think a lot of these decisions are made by the environment, but I think there's an important thing that you said. And one thing that I think can be tricky, like when a player does have a good camp, what is the message that you send if you're like, hey, you had a great camp, you did everything we asked you to do, but you're going back to junior? It's hard to sell that message. And I think sometimes that can be confusing to players, but at the same time, the threshold of making the NHL is so high that, it's not a bad thing if you say, hey, you did everything we asked you to do, but hey, it's not your time yet. And maybe it's not our time. Maybe you don't fit with us right now is the other thing, but he fits right now. And that's the thing. Like, he fits right now. I think that they have a case. We'll see what happens there. This wasn't a surprise because we both called this, but Brady Martin did make the opening night roster of the Nashville Predators. And towards the end of the preseason, he was playing on a line with Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly. Will he play there for the season? I don't know, but like, that's their top line. Like, I mean, like, he's basically playing with 2 of their best players. That was the part that surprises me, is that if Brady's going to make this team, it's probably in a depth role. It's probably, like fourth line, like, he's going to get that Tom Wilson treatment early where, hey, go grind it out with these guys. That doesn't appear to be the case. And maybe, and to me, I think that's also more a Barry Trotz's philosophy as a GM. And also, from when he was a coach, is if you're going to play, we need you to play in the role that we think you're going to be for us long term. What do you think about Brady Martin, though? Based on what you saw, good preseason, scored some goals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have we changed our opinion at all from where we have been the last few weeks on him?
Well, I mean, yeah, in the sense that, like, if he's going to play on the top line, it's like,
right, that's
the ticket, right? That's the ticket. If you want to keep a guy up, and you're wondering, are we going to limit his offensive upside long term by keeping him down and playing him 10 minutes and playing with fourth liners and not seeing power play time? Then it's like, yeah, get him back to junior where he can grow, thrive. But if you're going to play him 20 minutes a night with Flip Forsberg, you're going to give him power play time. You're going to bring him along, and he can handle that pace, and he can still play offensively. Keep him around. I know he is over the moon excited, obviously, to get into the lineup and get that action, just chomping at the bit. But once the adrenaline wears off for some of these guys, that first game, even that second game, we start to see it around game 3, game 4, game 5. And you see that when guys get traded too, all of a sudden they look like they're, world beaters. And then it kind of, that buzz falls off. Then we're really going to see what's cooking, right? But he plays with a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm, and that, it hasn't gone away in junior showings. So if he can maintain that, I mean, great spot for him. And I'm rooting for him now. I'm rooting for him to stick, even though, selfishly, we'd love to have all of these guys in Minnesota for the World Juniors, right? Just
exactly.
Up the skill level for us and for everyone at home watching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and Canada, the only country at this point with any eligible players in the NHL right now. There are some that will be in the AHL for other countries, but nobody else in the NHL. So it could be as many as 7 or 8 players.
It's like 10 or 11, actually, I think.
10 or 11 now. Geez. I mean, and that decor too. That decor is, ooh.
Yeah.
Look out, folks. We'll get back to more of those Canadian players, but before that, let's head over to a European player and a guy who actually just scored his first NHL goal, Matvei Gridin of the Calgary Flames. Gridin was drafted out of the USHL Muskegon, which actually does give the Flames the opportunity, should they choose it, to send him to the AHL if they need to. They don't have to. He played for Shawinigan last year in the Q, had a great season. He is junior age eligible. They could send him back to junior, but obviously making the NHL roster, you figure he's going to stick around for a bit. Maybe he does. Maybe he stays the whole season. Maybe he goes back to the AHL, but he's one of those players where teams have flexibility, which they like. He's waiver exempt. There's a lot of benefits to, having players on ELCs that you can send back and forth without penalty, and having to go to waivers. So Matvei Gridin, I mean, any surprises there from you? And obviously they also have Zane Parekh, who we all knew would be on that roster. I mean, they telegraphed that the whole way. But Matvei Gridin was a surprise to me to see. I thought maybe we'd see him start with the Wranglers in the AHL.
Yeah, a surprise for me too, but I'm wondering if it was that big of a surprise for Calgary. And so in Vegas at the Sphere, after day 2 of the draft, I pulled Craig Conroy aside and I was like, wow, kudos. You guys did very well at this draft. So they got Parekh at 9, right? They got Andrew Basha at 41, Battaglia. They got Henry Muse in the 3rd, Luke Misa in the 5th. I was like, wow, this looks like a great haul. And the guy that he was most excited about at the time was Matvei Gridin. He's like, at 28, he's like, we like Gridin. Even though the whole thing where he couldn't get into Michigan because his grades, and then he was the top pick in the CHL import draft, there was all kind of not so much positive going on at that time, right around that too. And you could see he was excited. They were excited, their scouts, about Matvei Gridin. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that was a good pick too, I suppose. And look at that. Here we are. He was the one starting when Parekh was getting the scratch too, right? So maybe it wasn't a huge surprise for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and he's got size, he's got strength, he's got hockey sense. I mean, he had 79 points in the QMJHL last year in 56 games, 83 and 60, and has scored. He's a goal scorer, 36 goals in the Q last year, 38 the year before in the USHL. Dominant performance in the playoffs as well. And then now he's got a goal in his first NHL game. It was a bit of a fluky one, but it doesn't matter how it went in. It went in, and it's his goal. So Very excited to see how he does. And yeah, now I'm going to go with a trio here. We got a trio of players because it's not that one of them made it. It's that all three of them made it. And that is, and there's one name in there that I thought was out of left field, but it was the trending name throughout training camp for the Detroit Red Wings. The Detroit Red Wings will open the season with on their roster Axel Sandin Pellikka, Emmitt Finnie, and Michael Brandsted-Nygård, who Nygård was actually the one, Brandsted-Nygård was the one that was not surprising to me. I thought we'd see ASP start in the AHL. Nope.
Yep.
And Emmitt Finnie, he looked fine in the little stint that he had with Grand Rapids last year, but if you would have told me that kid is going to make the NHL roster the following season, I wouldn't have believed you. And so Emmitt Finnie, Axel Sandin Pellikka, and Michael Brandsted-Nygård all in the mix here. There's two thoughts I have, Cam. The first one is, one, how surprising is it? But two, what does it say about where the Detroit Red Wings are right now in whatever year this is of the Shanna plan? To have that many young fellas, it feels like this is still I don't know. I'll let you answer. I'm not sure exactly what. I'll let you answer.
Okay, well, let's talk Emmitt Finnie first, because
let's do it.
Talk about the biggest underdog story of opening night rosters, right? Like, the kid's 20 years old, nearly the last pick in the draft a couple years ago, right? Late seventh rounder. If I remember correctly, he was the last player that we decided to feature in the EP draft guide in 2023. The last guy that we're like, you know what? We drew the line. We added Emmitt Finnie. Okay. And after a 9-goal season in the dub, okay, he still gave him an F, but he was in the guide. He had an F rating, but he got into the guide. Here, draft +1 jumps up to a point a game player, right? Draft +2, captain, 37 goals there. Transitions, like he said, to the AHL looked pretty good. He's on the first line. Now he's breaking camp, skating next to Larkin and Raymond on the first line. Like, holy smokes. Like, we raved about the kid's work rate and his motor, and, he had some IQ to him too, but it's like, what a rise to glory here for this guy. I am definitely rooting for Emmitt Finnie. ASP, I'm like you. I was checking in with some people, and I was like, does he have an out clause? If it doesn't work, will he jump back to the SHL? Plan is for him to stick in North America regardless. But, the source indicated what he said to me. It was like, what do you think? They're going to keep him out of the lineup for Travis Hamonic or Justin Holl? I was like, fair.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, but man, that's a young decor. It's a young decor. So I don't know, but like you said, and then MBN, Brandsted-Nygård, he's like a pro player, right? He's not going to put up points, but he's going to check. He's going to be hard, on the forecheck. He's going to be hard everywhere. But he really struggled to put up any offense in the SHL last year. So I very little expectation for what he's going to do in the NHL. I bet you he sees like a 50-50 split, even too, goes up and down, maybe American League, NHL. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a heat-seeking missile. Like, that kid wants to hit everything that moves. And that was evident. I watched one of their preseason games that he was in where he was just hitting everything. And it was like, he is an F1 Supreme. He is going to get guys on their heels. He's going to make defensemen know that he's there. He's probably going to have to drop the gloves a few times because of the way that he plays. But then he also has a big shot too. It's a heavy shot. It's a guy that I think, that's a tool that put him in the right places with the right players is going to have a chance. He's going to get to the net. That'll be really interesting. But as I look at the Red Wings and I look at, their depth chart and I look at their lineup and the way that it looks right now, I'm just like, I mean, at what point does the patience run out on the Yzerplan? It feels like it was thinning last year. So you've got, and then you mentioned the youth on the blue line, Sandin Pellikka, Edvinsson also on that blue line. Sider still young, but he's obviously a clear veteran guy now. But I mean, was it Justin Holl that they ended up waiving to make room for ASP, and that was like kind of the thing where it's just like, I mean, as it stands right now, you've got Emmitt Finnie on your top line, Marco Kasper in year 2 of his NHL career as your second line center, Brandsted-Nygård in your third line. And then, you've got kind of a run of the mill fourth line with Rasmussen and Soderblom. Appleton right now as we look at the what Daily Faceoff has for lines. And, it's just, I still struggle to see where the light at the end of the tunnel is for Detroit.
Yeah.
There are still there are still prospects in their system that are yet to come. Nate Danielson got hurt, so he's going to be out for a little bit. They have some other players in Grand Rapids that will make an impact. They have Trey Augustine in the pipeline. This is feels like a make or break season for Sebastian Kosa in Grand Rapids as well. Show us or we're going on. So, that's the thing. That's where I come back to, Cam, is I'm just not sure, if is Detroit ever going to be truly bad enough to get those difference makers? Raymond is obviously a difference maker. Larkin's a difference maker. They've got guys. Do they have, Minnesota just paying $17 million to keep Kaprizov because he's a game breaker? Do they have a game breaker?
Yeah.
I don't see one there. So
No, you're right. No. You're absolutely right. It's I'm sure the patience is definitely, we see it. We see it on social media too, right? The people are getting frustrated. It's becoming a mocking point. The eyes are playing, right? And you're right. It's unless you're bad enough to get a true impact player, or you're good enough to identify one that slipped through the cracks a little bit, it's tough. And you end up in that mushy middle, and you look at that roster and you're like, it doesn't look like a playoff team to me, right?
No,
but it doesn't look like a bottom 3 team either. And also looking at these lines too,
right.
ASP is not even on a power play unit. What are we doing there? We're keeping this kid up, put him on the power play, right? At least get him on PP2. They got Brandzik Nygaard running the point on PP2.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of intrigue on that Red Wings roster, and I hope it works out. I think that those 3 players, and especially Finnie, just coming. He's been a gradual development, a late bloomer, if you will. And whatever they saw at the time, that's one of those where you feel like, wow, we found something. But let's see if they stick, because they all are eligible to go to Grand Rapids, which, I thought was going to be one of the most intriguing teams in the NHL with those 3 guys potentially on it, or AHL with those guys on it. But we'll see. Couple other guys. Another guy that I don't think it was necessarily a surprise that he made the team, but then he ends up being a healthy scratch in opening night, and he's kind of in limbo, as Easton Cowan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Doesn't play in the opener. Was actually sent down, they were doing some cap gymnastics, I think, at one point. They have the Toronto Marlies in the AHL. He's eligible to go there. Great junior career, highly decorated. One of those players where it is going to be what is he going to be as an NHL player? What role will he play? Cam, what do you, in terms of, if you had to handle Easton Cowan this year, what would your plan be to, just to kind of is it more AHL time? Is it let's see what he can do in a depth role in the NHL? Where do you land on that?
I have many thoughts on Easton Cowan. I think that where he played in London, and the super long point streak, and the gaudy point totals that he ended up not super gaudy, but the point streak really kind of inflated his value in a lot of people's eyes, fans' eyes, anyways. And he's not this super gifted offensive player, and I think we saw that pretty clearly at the World Juniors a couple of years, but especially as a 19-year-old, where it's he's just not that player. He's not going to take over games with his skill. Not to say he's not a good player, because I think he is a good player, and I tip my cap that they were higher on him at the draft at the time than a lot of us were, and I think that that'll prove pretty good for them as well. But he's not someone I think that just needs to step in and you would be we got to find a spot for him in the top 6. There is probably a spot in that top 6 that he could have stole, Bobby McMahon, or Maselli's spot. He could have made a move somewhere around there. Nick Robertson, I think, has been on the trade block for a while. The teams are interested that he could be someone that can move out, that he could step in there, but he hasn't forced his hand. He hasn't forced their hand to do it. So the AHL is just fine. Go down there and see if you can't put 20 up in the American League, which is no easy feat as a 20-year-old.
Right.
And then, do the slow burn up. It's a good team in Toronto. Nothing should be given to him. And he's not an electric prospect that you have to be we better get him in, because he could be a difference maker when he catches fire.
Yeah. I feel like the salary cap has as much to do with what you want to do with him ultimately. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, a lot of things in Toronto right now that are less than ideal in terms of, obviously they have Joseph Woll out for a bit. You've got, you're trying to figure out where you're going to be ultimately, but obviously you have your core group of players, no longer the core four. You've got whatever they're going to be calling that now. And you've got, you still got a lot of time, but Easton Cowan's one of those guys where I feel like, yo-yoing him between the levels isn't going to be beneficial. It's like, let's see if you can get him established in one or the other. He just needs to play, and I think that's something that Brad Treliving said as well. No matter what team he ends up on, he's got to play. And so he's not going to be called up just to be in the press box long-term, but on opening night, that was the case. Two other guys, one real quick, just Harrison Brunicky. I think with the camp that he had last year, I think he was probably likely to stick this year, and he does with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Gets in the open net lineup. He looked okay. I thought he was fine. But yeah, that's another guy. Junior age eligible, could go. You would have to go back to the WHL. Could play for Canada. Kind of leapfrog some of the other guys, like leapfrog Owen Pickering, who's back in the AHL now. So it's just kind of like, that's another player where I'm really intrigued to see what happens. But I want to get to this next player because will the Anaheim Ducks follow basically the same path with Beckett Seneca as they did with Leo Carlsson?
Yeah.
And that seems, at least at this point, like that could be the way that it's going. Seneca could go back to the Oshawa Generals in the OHL, or he can stay in the NHL. Those are the two options. What are you doing with Beckett Seneca?
Yeah. I'm fine giving him the Leo Carlsson treatment and in a game, out a game, out a game, in a game, like just like move it around, have him up there, watch him from the press box, skating in practice at the high level, having your hands all over him. Getting those development guys, they're all in there. And then you see, right? You spread those 9 games out instead of it being over, 3 weeks. You spread it over 6 weeks or something like that, and you give yourself some more time. But he didn't absolutely dominate junior last year as an 18-year-old, right? Which is fine. He was very good for stretches, but he didn't dominate. So I think that this kid it's all about the offensive upside. So keep him around, see how it goes. If you decide, hey, when he's in, he's getting good minutes and we plan to give him more minutes and more games as the season goes along, I'm totally fine with him being in the NHL. At the same time, I think that even sending him back around Christmas time to go play juniors, World Juniors, and then go back and play in the O, hopefully have a nice second half, go for a deep playoff run if that works out for him, and then he can come up and maybe he's ready at 20, or maybe he goes to the AHL again the next year. And you want him cooking at 22. You don't need him cooking right now. The team's not ready to take that big step. And I think it's very, very important to the franchise, obviously, a 3rd overall pick that he breaks in the best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he is he's an interesting player because of the skill set, the size, everything. I mean, like there's just so much, like you can understand. It's tantalizing. I do think he didn't necessarily dominate the regular season and also, ended up not getting picked for the World Juniors as a result.
Yeah.
And then goes on a tear right after that and really, I think, picked it up. But it's like, can you get that sustained long-term thing, stay healthy, do all the things that you need to do and take that next step? I mean, the Ducks have young guys on young guys on young guys right now. It's like, what's the harm in maybe sending them back? But we will see. Well, that's the tea on the surprises. I mean, there are certainly other players that made NHL rosters we could talk about. We want to keep it with the young fellas, mostly under 21 players, under 20 players for a good chunk of them there. And we'll see where the chips fall in terms of their futures. But there was another piece of big news and a big debut last weekend in college hockey. The one that we had been waiting for. The NHL, in their infinite wisdom, did decide to go and say, hey, NCHC, we would like to put this on YouTube for free. We would also like to put it on NHL Network. And because of that, hundreds of thousands of people got to see the Gavin McKenna debut, the debut game. And then if they stuck around with it, they also got to see his first collegiate goal on night 2, the game winner. In that he had 3 points over the weekend. I was watching the forks were down. There was so much happening. So Cam, in your in your view, what were some of your takeaways from Gavin McKenna's debut weekend?
Well, it was must-see TV, right? That was a lot of fun. I had scouts texting and talking about it. I had other people texting me and being like, "Does this kid ever back check?" And I was like, "Oh, get out of here! Let's not be talking about this right now. Let's have some fun with this kid in the NCAA at his age, doing the type of stuff he's doing." I mean, it made me think. Not even mentioned Charlie Serrato, who's on a different line. That kid looks like he's going to put up a ton of points this year at Penn. But no, it was exciting to watch. You saw him creating, right? Like he did have the goal there on night 2, and it was a dagger, and then drops the forks down. Yeah. Like you can just see like the confidence, right? Like the fun that he's already having with that group. On the road at ASU to pull that off and to hammer him with the forks down too. But he's gonna do well. He's gonna do very well, and it's gonna continue to be must see. So hopefully we can get some more action there. I know it's only the one game on Flow this year, you're telling me, but people are gonna have to get out to Barnes then to go see this kid, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna probably and certainly in the US there will be a fair amount of national TV for Penn State, and I assume in Canada we often see like TSN will simulcast games and other things like that. But yeah, Penn State, I mean their schedule, they're going to be must see TV throughout the whole season. They're going to be everybody's following them. I did write a column right after the weekend just to kind of summarize the thoughts, and I just want to share a couple of the takeaways that I had. The one thing that I think was the biggest takeaway for me was anyone that was thinking that he was just going to go to college, go through the motions, get picked, and just go through it. No, this is and you talk to the guys on the Penn State staff, you talk to the people that are watching the games, and you just watch him play, and you say, this is a kid that's having fun. He is enjoying this. The whole forks down thing was like I was like, is he gonna are these guys gonna understand the various traditions and other things like that of these programs? And it just goes to show you too that Penn State group is a team. And then what else I also loved about that? I don't know if you caught it, but at the very end of the game, when they scored an empty netter to ice the second win, the bench just exploded. And the thing about playing in the NCAA, literally every game matters, because it's part of what may ultimately get you in or not in to the NCAA tournament. Last year, Arizona State got into a conference in large part to improve their chances. And because of some non-conference play, and also because of the lack of strength within their own conference that season, they missed out barely on the NCAA tournament. And so any game that you play, there is a new format this year in terms of how they're going to choose teams for the NCAA. They're using NPI, which I'm not going to go into an explanation here because I already fell asleep just saying NPI. We've got so many acronyms now in college sports, but that is, that's going to be part of it. And so every game matters, and it puts you in a more intense environment on a game-to-game basis. And yes, there are fewer games total than what you would play in the CHL, but for him, it's just clearly he's so invested in it. And then also, you mentioned it already, the supporting cast at Penn State, if there were concerns there, like Serrato, Fink, DeMarsico, Matt Godowski, all these players. And then the goalie, Kevin Riedler, who was a huge question mark coming into the season after only playing 8 games in the NCAA last year. He's shown brightly, and he's an Ottawa Senators pick. So lots of fun to be had there. As we go through this season, you did mention the whole thing, not back checking. What are the things that we're going to need to see from Gavin McKenna going forward? Because I would say it was not a perfect weekend for him. It was a strong weekend, but it was not a perfect weekend for him, nor would we expect it to be. So any closing thoughts on the look ahead to Gavin McKenna?
Just remember that he's 17. Right. Let's just remember that he's a 17-year-old, and there are guys out there that are 22, 23 years old. And the average age has got to be 20 plus. And so it's not going to be perfect. And he is not a perfect two-way player, but guess what?
No.
You're not taking him first overall to back check too often. And I'm sure I am sure that when push comes to shove and he's in the pros and he's putting up his big gaudy point totals, that he'll get on his horse every now and again when it really matters too. But that's not his game. He's not going to do the dirty work. He's not a gritty player. He is an offensive player. He is a playmaker, and he also has like a great release too. But he is going to dish. He is going to drop dimes all over town. He's going to do it at Penn, and he's going to do it in the NHL starting next year as an 18-year-old too. So let's just keep in mind, not everybody needs to be Patrice Bergeron.
I agree. And I think the way he looks on the power play, the way that he looked at 5-on-5, the decisions he was making, I mean, they're all high level. He's going to challenge a lot of teams here. But yeah, Penn State, it'll be a while. We do have one of their games on FloHockey this year as they play RIT, and but that is unfortunately during World Juniors. So I think Mr. McKenna will be a little bit busy for that one. But I'll tell you what, you won't have to worry about missing on FloHockey, because we're going to change gears here and we are going to talk about the American Hockey League, which is starting up on Friday. This episode drops on Friday. So there is a 28 game weekend coming up, and I am so excited about that. But before we get into talking about some of the prospects you're going to want to watch, got to remind you, hockey hits harder on Flo. Every game, every goal, every hit, all season long. FloHockey gives you access to the most live hockey anywhere, including leagues like the AHL, ECHL, OHL, and QMJHL. Watch your team, follow top prospects, and stay on top of all the action on the ice. Subscribe now to stream it all live on FloHockey. Cannot recommend it enough. For the best value you can get, make sure you get that annual subscription. It is cheaper overall if you were just paying every single month. Get that annual, because if you're a fan of the Detroit Red Wings, you can watch prospects at the AHL, the ECHL, the OHL, the QMJHL, wherever they're at. You can pretty much watch them. So there are lots of great ways to do it, and we are excited to have it. But Cam, this is year 2 of the AHL on FloHockey. Last year was a ton of fun. The Abbotsford Canucks won the Calder Cup for the first time. Artur Shilovs, who was their goalie, just made his NHL debut. Or not his NHL debut, but his Pittsburgh Penguins debut, and got a shutout in the opening night. Played for the Vancouver Canucks, and could he be Pittsburgh's goalie of the future now suddenly? Holy smokes, what happened? All those different things there. Also, you got a lot of teams celebrating anniversary seasons, including the Rochester Americans. It's 78 years for the Rochester Americans that they are celebrating this season. 90 years for the AHL itself, a truly important and historic league in the landscape of hockey. But we're here to talk about prospects. It's called Up the Prospects Podcast. So these are the guys that you're going to be listening for to potentially get called up this year, or maybe even sooner. But Cam, the way that I broke this down is there are so many top prospects in the AHL. I wanted to kind of break down the list a little bit smaller. Guys that were, in their early 20s or 19 year, some teenagers. We don't have a ton of super young guys this year. Like last year, we saw Consta Helenius. He's back again for another year. But we did have one player that was drafted in the last draft that will at least seemingly start in the AHL, and that is Radim Mrtka. Radim Mrtka currently with the Rochester Americans right now, a top 10 pick, 6'6" defenseman. Strong in training camp, strong in rookie camp, could go back to the Seattle Thunderbirds if they so choose to push him that way. But it looks like he's going to start in Rochester. Your thoughts on Radim Mrtka? What can we expect from him in his first North American pro season?
Now, remind me, he was loaned to the T-Birds, and that's why he can go to the AHL. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So he was under contract for the Czech League. Yeah. So even though he was drafted from the Seattle Thunderbirds, they didn't necessarily have his contractual rights. So yes, that's correct.
Yes, perfect. That's what I thought too, but I was just making sure I wasn't an idiot. I think that's a great spot for him, right? Like he was playing like 30 minutes a night for the T-Birds last year, oh boy, Seattle, they're like no Braden Coots, where's our captain? No Radim Mrtka, where's our horse on the blue line? Like that's trouble. And if Coots does end up going back, he's going to miss Radim Mrtka too. But no, I think this is a good spot for him because, he's so big. He is mobile. He has, good experience playing pro hockey already. He did the spin in the WHL last year. I mean, why not? As long as he's able to handle it, I got no problem. I think that's probably the best spot for him.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot too, because Rochester has been a really solid developmental arm, and I think that at sometimes you think back to some of the other players that Buffalo has been a team that has traditionally rushed players, guys that played, and they may have had a great first season, but then they take a step back and then they don't recover, and like I think that's happened a lot in this instance when you have the option to send a player to the AHL. And I think more teams are going to look at that option next season when we see some rule changes potentially. Oh, yeah. They're nothing set in stone yet, but there was talk that teams could pick a 19-year-old to put in the AHL this year. That got pushed back. Yeah. That could happen next year, but we could see more like that. And then, for Radim Mrtka, he's got the size, he's got the strength, he's got, a lot of things, but now he's got to get to the pace. He's got to get to the intensity of pro hockey in North America. He did play professionally in Czechia, so those things are going to allow him to do it. There's also a foundation of young players within the Rochester Americans that are going to potentially be core guys for the Sabres in future years. That includes Konsta Helenius. They also have Noah Ostlund down there as well. So you've got young guys. You've got a young coach in Mike Leone there. You've got a lot of things going for you. Devin Levi, if he's going to be there, you've got a lot of really interesting players that are part of that group. And if you can get them winning together for one of the historically great AHL teams, that's a great place to be. So I agree with you. I think that it's a good spot for him, but you think about the bittersweet moments for these junior teams, right? That are like, Seattle is feeling the burn right now. I think Saginaw is feeling the burn that they knew it was coming with Misa and correct. Yeah. But again, these are guys that are eligible. I think the Sioux Greyhounds, did they anticipate that Brady Martin was going to not be available to them? Maybe they did because they knew him better than anybody else, but those kinds of things. And so it changes your plans and it does make things difficult. But I think Helenius, I expect him to have a breakout year in the AHL. I think last year was all about him getting kind of adjusted. This is the year I want to see him take off, so we'll see what he does. And I think the same can be true of Ostlund, who kind of came along and showed flashes of brilliance last year. So Rochester is absolutely going to be a team, if you are a prospect fan, you are going to want to keep an eye on because they got some good young players. Let's head out by you. Let's head out to the Abbotsford Canucks, the defending Calder Cup champions. And they're going to have, Victor Mancini is back there in Abbotsford, and now you've also got Tom Willander as well. And let's talk about Tom, because I don't know. I wonder, and you have a better finger on the pulse of the team. Do you think he's going to be in Abbotsford the whole season?
It depends on injuries, right? And how that goes with the big club. But I think that this is, and I talk about this on Vancouver radio all the time too, is that, we saw him in the World Juniors. He was excellent. He was actually my pick I thought he was the top Swedish defender over ASP, even though he didn't have the points. We saw him at college. I thought he was very strong. But at no point did he actually be like, that's an NHL player playing against kids, right? He was just good. Yeah. He was just very good, but he wasn't screamed step right into the NHL because, there is a little bit of hand wringing going on. Like, hey, this is a first round pick. This is a high first round pick that is coming out of college and not stepping right into the NHL. What's wrong? So I had a really interesting conversation with a development coach who talked about like cognitive abilities on the ice and how some players simply don't have it. They especially defensively and against the rush for defensemen, is that some players have it and some players do not have it. And you really can't build it past a certain level. And that when teams are drafting defensemen who aren't projected to be high-end point getters, that should be their number one. The thing they're looking for most is, can they make decisions quickly? And this guy was raving about Villander's ability to make those decisions too. And so just giving him time in the American League, I think, is only going to benefit him long-term. I think that he still needs to work on his skills with the puck to make those plays, to make offensive plays happen and to distribute it a little bit more. But, you want him being able to shut down McDavid on the rush. And at this point, that's not where he's at. But if you bring him along properly, that is the type of player he can be. And he won't put up gaudy point totals, but he could be that guy if Quinn Hughes sticks around, that he's playing next to Hughes and you just don't notice too much because he's just making all the right plays. And that the nuanced fan or the other teams are gonna be like, God, we hate when we're coming down on that side against Willander because he's just smothering with his smarts and his stick and his skating. Something, like, did you ever see Nick Lidstrom? Not that he's Nick Lidstrom, but did you ever see Nick Lidstrom throw a hit? Not too often, right? Because he didn't need to. He was always in the right spot and he would just take the puck from you right away. And so that's what the Canucks are hoping Tom Willander can develop his game to get to that type of level, that he doesn't need to be a big smash mouth guy or a guy who puts up big points, but just quietly goes about his business. So I would keep him in the American League for the most part, unless injuries force him up.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think for a good chunk of the guys that we're going to talk about, I mean, I think it's going to be a full season situation for them to potentially, move into their NHL roles beyond next season. Like, I mean, the thing is, you look at the NHL, 82% of the opening night rosters are guys that spend time in the AHL. It is rarely a step that is skipped. You have to be the elite of the elite to skip this step. And if you're a goalie, you cannot skip this step. It's basically impossible unless you're coming directly from the KHL and are a super stud. Like that's basically it. And so like there's some other guys, like obviously I think if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, you got to be excited to see what Braden Yeager is going to do with the Manitoba Moose this year. You've got some young guys coming into that group. They lost Chaz Lucius, who unfortunately had to retire due to so like that's a top prospect gone. You need Brad Lambert to take another step this year. Is that ever going to happen? But like now Braden Yeager comes in and he becomes one of those really important guys, a guy that I think a lot of Jets fans will want to take in a Manitoba Moose game to see. So that's another one. But here's a guy that I want to talk with you about. I think and Rangers fans probably weren't necessarily surprised, but they weren't necessarily thrilled to see that Gabe Perreault was sent to the AHL. I was not surprised that he was going to the AHL. I think, especially with Mike Sullivan as head coach, there's a level that he is going to have to get to get in and get that trust. But I think he's one of the smart young players in the game that will find a way. Gabe Perreault, what do you think we need to see from him at the AHL level as we go forward here?
Go produce, right? This kid, that's what he does.
Like
you
always.
said, he is very, very intelligent, right? Like always, that's what he does. But now you're doing it in the AHL, which is, we say it like almost every week. It is a difficult league to put up points. It is tight checking, very tight checking. And it's also just a little bit sloppier, right? Just a little bit sloppier than the NHL, where guys are so crisp, they're so clean, they're always nearly in the right position. They have their systems, they have their structure. It's just a little bit messier down there. And that chaos, it makes it more difficult to make plays and to score because it is so tight checking. And there is very good hockey players down there. So if he can go down there and produce at his size and his speed, that's what he needs to do to be like, I'm ready. Call me up, bring me in, put me in, coach.
Yeah, just do what you've done every step of your career, right? Like, that's the thing is like he has constantly had to prove it and reprove it. Now, I will say that Gabe's numbers did take a dip in college last year. They did go a little bit down. Will Smith was gone, all that stuff. But but that doesn't really bother me because he's always had that. He's, two-time World Junior gold medalist. I mean, this is a guy that's he'll be back. But I think if you were, you look at the Rangers had Noah Laba make it after a really strong camp. And, there's a lot of things that Gabe has to overcome, the size being one of the things, skating, as that continues to improve, playing the game fast, that'll be important. But yeah, I'm excited to see him. I think that this is a good step for him. And like, what happens if he has 60 points this year, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that says something at this level.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Hershey Bears next because they are going to be much different looking than they have been in years past. Hershey has traditionally been a very veteran-laden team, a very older, more AHL, like they're independently owned. They sell out pretty much every game. It's a different story. This year, they are going to have some critical prospects for the Washington Capitals on their roster. They did send Ivan Marashchenko back down. This will be his third season, I believe, in the AHL. He's got to take a step. But again, this is a guy that came off of a cancer diagnosis. He's coming back. But now they also have Andrew Crystal and Ilya Protas. Now, Ilya Protas, another guy who played in the OHL last year, but because he was drafted out of the USHL, is eligible to be sent to the AHL. So if you were curious as to why Ilya Protas is there, but he was the second leading scorer in the OHL last season. So Crystal, I think we could have the same exact conversation about Crystal as we just did about Perreault. But I got to be honest, Protas is the guy that intrigues the heck out of me. He is huge. His brother obviously already plays for the Capitals and is huge and is broken out. They do say big guys take longer. He goes from the USHL where he was very productive, goes to the OHL where he was hyper productive, and now he's going to go into the AHL. I mean, I feel like this could be a real gem for the Washington Capitals. And if he does it at the AHL level, I think we're just talking about another really great find by that scouting staff.
Yeah, and I think they're pretty excited about him too, just by what Big Brother has pulled off and then what he has done himself in that transition. Yeah, very interesting to watch how he translates because, like you said, he's got the big body, he's got the reach, he's got the scoring touch, he's got a lot of stuff going for him that should transition pretty seamlessly, even as a youngster, to that level. So yeah, if he can be potting goals at a regular pace, being a little nasty out there, yeah, it probably won't be too long before we see him in some NHL action as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Excited about that. Well, I want us to get to the called up challenge, but so I'm just going to really quickly buzz through a couple of extra names here for people to watch this season. One that I know you like a lot, Stian Solberg. Huh? You like Stian Solberg? You got to like him. You got to like him.
I like him. I like him. Yeah, he's fun. He's fun. And fun kid too.
Solberg came to the AHL late last season. It was kind of controversial. He got pulled from Färjestad last year right before the playoffs in the SHL. They didn't love that. He didn't play a ton over there though, but then he goes, and I saw his first game in the AHL and he was hitting everything and loved that. We got Trevor Connolly, who is 1 year removed. He played freshman season at Providence, turns pro, Henderson Silver Knights. He is injured currently, suffered that injury at the World Junior Summer Showcase and has not returned to action yet. So unfortunate there. We'll see how he does. Noah Ostlund, who we mentioned, Daniil Boot, who just got sent down a couple of days ago for the Tucson Roadrunners, 6'5" forward. How about the hands on that kid? Did you see the goal that he scored against in the preseason?
Yeah.
6'5" guys shouldn't handle pucks like that. Shouldn't be allowed.
No, it's nasty. It's Rick Nash like, right? That was kind of give a little Rick Nash vibes on that one.
He is going to be a lot of fun, dude. He's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see them. And then a couple guys that might not be the top prospects, household names, but guys I'm going to be watching closely. Two of the best players in college hockey last year, Jack Devine with the Charlotte Checkers and Quinn Hudson with the Bakersfield Condors. Quinn Hudson, an undrafted free agent signed by Edmonton. I think he's going to be an offensive focal point for Bakersfield right off the hop. It looks like Savoy and Howard are probably staying with the big club, at least for the time being. That gives Hudson a chance to be a go-to player. Jack Devine got into playoff games with Charlotte last year. They really were struggling offensively until they inserted him in the lineup in the Calder Cup finals last year. So two highly intelligent young players that will be forces in that league. So don't forget, watch the AHL on FloHockey. 28 games over opening weekend, all 32 teams in action between Friday and Sunday. You will not want to miss that. But now it's time for us to have a little fun or be a little embarrassed. I have been getting absolutely flamed for my performances in the called up challenge. And therefore, Cam, I'm going to go first so I can maybe so you challenge me and then I will challenge you.
Okay.
So what we're doing today, by the way, I hope so. I need to redeem myself, but just to explain what we're going to do, we've done a number of different ways. We're going to go back to the old way where each of us gives each other a minimum of 3 context clues to see if we can name that prospect. You along at home, see if you can name it before us without cheating by going to eliteprospects.com and finding these players and their stats. So Cam, hit me.
Okay. 2009 NHL draft.
Okay.
He has played the second most games of anyone in that class.
Ooh, okay.
He has a Hall of Fame type resume without ever posting a point per game season?
2009. So is that John
2009.
Tavares? Is that John Tavares's?
It's Johnny T.
Is it? Yep. So is that?
That's
and
his
it's
year.
not Victor Hedman.
It is not Victor Hedman.
Okay.
Yes.
That is really good. So 2009 draft, second most games played. May I get the position, please?
You may. He plays the middle of the ice.
Okay. Center.
Yeah.
Unhelpful.
Yes.
Yes. Has never put up a point per game. All right. I hate to do it, but I got to go to a fifth clue. I need to phone a friend here. A fifth clue.
Okay. And this one's going to help you out a lot. Okay. This
Okay.
is putting in context the Hall of Fame type resume. He has a Lady Byng, a Selke, and a Conn Smythe.
Okay. So we are talking Ryan O'Reilly.
I'm glad I didn't have to use the sixth clue, which was he once crashed his car into a Tim Hortons. That might have been too much of a giveaway for you.
That would have given it away. So yeah, but you know what? Ryan O'Reilly, that's a great one because also not a first round draft pick, which you know, I like and did he make his NHL debut?
He did.
Immediately.
The next year.
Yeah. So
immediately.
So yeah, because I was working at USA Hockey at the time. I was at that World Under 18s, and they had a really loaded. I'm pretty sure he was on it. I know for sure Kyle Clifford was on it because he was yelling at our players across the red line the entire warm up. I don't know if he touched a puck during warm up. It was amazing. I'd been most of our games were in the USHL that season, it was the North American League that season, and I just hadn't seen that before, and now I watch a lot of other games and I see it more, including our pal Cash Aitchison, who has been unreal in the O this year, by the way. All right.
Love Cash.
I got one for you, Cam. It's my turn. Okay. I'm going to give you this one. This player was selected in the 2019 NHL draft, so not recent. Terribly long ago. Yes.
I can handle this.
This player has so far appeared in 148 NHL games and has 60 points. That's one clue together. 148 games and has 60 points.
60 points, and 140 games. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. The last clue that I have for you is I'm going to give you where he was drafted out of. Okay. And we'll see if he was drafted.
Okay.
Where he was drafted out. He was drafted out of Shattuck St. Mary's.
Oh, you made it too easy for me. It was Jackson Lacombe.
Yeah.
It was everywhere, right? With that big 9 sheets he just got. Everyone's talking.
Yeah.
Shattuck.
That was the one that I had for last week, and then we skipped, and then we had him in the I was going to make it like a Jackson Lacombe special. But the reason I bring it up today, Cam, I did a podcast with the guys at the Athletic, and we were talking about Olympic rosters, and Lacombe is a guy that I have a feeling we should not be discounting in the discussion. I think he was brought up when people were up in arms that Lane Hudson was not on the roster for the orientation camp. People kept saying Lacombe is one of the guys, how is he not there over Lacombe? I'm just saying, dude, 6'2", over 200 pounds, skates great, stretch pass king. It's unbelievable.
Defensively, too.
He is a very good player, and I think he's in the mix for sure. So
yeah, I like that. I'll also add a little anecdote here. 9 sheets. And he's probably going to be worth every penny and maybe more. I had my fantasy draft this last weekend with my university buddies. This is year 12 or 13 or something like that. And we have a standing rule. It's a keeper league that if you draft someone who's already been drafted or kept, you have to do a shot. Well, I was on remote this year because I was coaching my kid and he's got tournament games and stuff. And so there I was thinking I was a genius, taking Jackson Lacombe in the second round. I was like, you fools don't even know he was a keeper. So there I was as everyone's sleeping in my kitchen. I got to do video evidence of me doing a shot of tequila by myself like a jerk in my pajamas at 10 p.m. Thanks a lot, Jackson. Yeah, I blame you for this.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
we made it through the called up challenge. I only needed 5 clues. Cam needed 3 for those scoring at home. How many did you need? You let us know in the comments on how quickly you were able to answer those questions, and shame me as you have week after week. I'm reading the comments. I'm doing it. And
He's
my
feeling
favorite
hurt.
one was the person that said, maybe, just name a guy at some point. So like, I was like, okay, yep. Maybe just start naming players. I was like, yeah, that's not a bad strategy. All right, everybody, let's move on to our Beyond Belief segment. This is kind of where we recap the show a little bit and also talk about some of the topics and get a little bit further in depth, but I have a few new ones in there. And one of them I spoiled already, so I might change it, but this one's for you, Cam. Ben Kindel will be a Pittsburgh Penguin by December. So we're talking he's still with the team. I don't know if he's playing a regular shift, but is he still a Pittsburgh Penguin by December? Ben Kindel.
Certainly believable, but I'm going to say no. I'm going to say beyond belief. I'm going to say he's back. He's back in Calgary. But you're right. He probably this alone has done wonders for his potential to make the World Junior team. Just making camp. Same with
another
Coops.
thing I'll say
I
about
think
it too,
both are probably on the outside looking in. If we pulled this in the summer, and now I think both are probably in substantially better spots, even if they end up.
Potentially. Yeah. I mean, and I think that for Kindle as well, like the thing that I'll be interested to see is our teams have become a little less married to the 9 games and are okay with going beyond. 40. We saw that happen with Shane Wright. Other teams that were like, hey, I think you can, if you're Pittsburgh, you can kick that can further down the road. I don't think he'll be a Penguin by December, but I do think that he could potentially go beyond that 9-game stint. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, Cam, your turn.
Okay. All right. So this one is, they were the favorites, betting odd favorites for the World Juniors coming up here in Mini. Is that in jeopardy now with the dozens of teenagers in the NHL that could be available to them?
To me, that is believable. But only, and it's not because of USA, it's because of Sweden. I think Sweden is going to be Sweden is the team to me that when you take away those Canadian players, and it's particularly the blue line, like, if let's say Brunick's not available, I don't think Parek's going to be available. We don't know if Dickinson's going to be available. Yeah. So Schaefer. So now you are in a position where we saw what that looked like. They sent those guys home at World Junior Camp, and then they were like, instead of having a bunch of first round players, they had a lot of guys that were, Ben Danford all of a sudden becomes like a very important defenseman for that team. And Ben Danford's a fine player, but I don't think that that's a guy that, like, when you say, oh, we could have had Schaefer, Dickinson, those guys, and then you've graduated enough players out. So the blue line, to me, that's where the concern lays. I think in the end they probably end up still as the betting favorite, but to me, you lose those guys, Sweden is now in the driver's seat. Has anybody seen what Anton Friendell's been doing the last couple of weeks?
I was about to say, was he got 6 goals, 8 points in 9 games? Decent start for Mr. Anton there. I get to go play some hockey with him next
Michigan.
Week too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's having himself a good time. Yeah.
Enjoy.
Like Vigo Bjork, and we got Eklund. It's going to be some fun times. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, there's a lot.
They're going to be good.
It's a great year to be in Sweden. We have a couple of Djurgårdens games coming up in on FloHockey as well. We have the SHL in the US, so make sure you check that out too. All right. We this is the one that I spoiled. I'm going to keep it because I think like let's talk about it a little bit more. But Tommy Willander will be a Vancouver Canuck by mid-season.
I don't think so. Unless like Myers goes down with injury or something like that, and they have a real hole on the right side. Because Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, has been playing on his offside, lefty playing on the right side, and instead of Tom Willander being up there. They also got Victor Mancini too, a 23, 24-year-old, 6'4". He's an unbridled stallion. That guy. I think he's ahead of Willander too to pop up too. So I do think that it's just let him play. Let him play a bunch of minutes down there, and then bring him on up the next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your logic just tracks very well. I mean, I was also thinking about like kind of the whole will he won't he sign, like the weird thing that happened kind
Oh
of
yeah.
in the
Yeah.
negotiation. I don't know. Like, do you throw him bone? Do you throw him a bone? I don't know. So probably not. Probably
Yeah.
not. Probably don't
Probably
have that
not. They could
luxury
have
this
thrown him a
year.
bone last year and signed him and just put
Yeah.
him into a
Right.
couple
Right.
games, right? That was when you throw him the
Right.
bone. Yeah, and they didn't do that.
Right. 100%.
Um
100%.
okay,
All right.
sticking with the Canucks here. Manny Malhotra, okay, head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks, will lead an NHL bench next year. Okay. Is he coming up?
Okay. Yeah. So next
He's the
year, I
next
think
guy coming up. How about that?
he's the next guy.
The next
I
AHLer.
think
Yeah.
it's, to me, it's very believable that he's next. So Marco Sturm. How about the thing? Marco Sturm comes in, coached the Ontario Reign last season, now the head coach of the Boston Bruins. I don't know if you caught it, Cam, but all of those players in Boston were saying like that was the best training camp they had been a part of. Like they were like
Nice.
raving about the way camp was run and how they were prepared.
Cool.
And that speaks so well to Marco Sturm, who has been a rising star. But Manny Malhotra, coming off of a Calder Cup, having had the experience as an NHL player and an NHL assistant coach, I think he fits that profile of that AHL coach that is going to be running an NHL bench. Now, I think, as we've seen, there's so much turnover in the NHL at coaching. But having seen what Malhotra did with Abbotsford last year, which was a lot of young guys and veterans, getting them all to pull the same way, getting the most out of his goaltender, getting, guys like Victor Mancini taking a huge step throughout the course of the season, Lekaramaki making a jump, I think that's a guy that his track record and the familiarity that NHL GMs have with him, I think, to me, he's the next man up in the AHL, the guy that everybody's gonna be talking about. Winning a championship never hurts, but I just think it's also how he's carrying himself as a head coach.
Yeah, and I mean, par for the course how he carried himself as a player too, right? Like few guys were as respected as Manny Malhotra in the league when he was playing. Few guys won as many faceoffs in him too, even when he only had one eye. But no, he's a lot of people in Vancouver were disappointed that he wasn't given the tap when Rick Tocchet left and said gave it to Adam Foote, because as speaking of Boston players raving about camp, is that nothing but positivity coming out of that Abbotsford team last year too. That from young to old, everybody's thrilled with how Manny handles things down there. And then, he has some help.
I also think
obviously he's not alone, but it's
right.
Go ahead.
I just think you look at the way that team progressed over the course of a season, Cam. They weren't the favorites going in, and then all of a sudden they just hit the gear. They hit that next gear, and just being in press conferences with Manny, seeing kind of how that team interacted. Like he had some like loose cannons on the team. Like he had guys like Sammy Blais and like he was able to corral that. He got it going in the right way, and that's and now Sammy Blais is, in the NHL, back in the NHL. So like it's really interesting. But anyway, well, Cam, we talked about contracts last week in our you have to pick one. But basically I want to turn it to the big guys. So Kirill Kaprizov signs $17 million a year. Also, how my Connor McDavid take from last week aged like a bag of milk. Yeah, that's for all my Canadian listeners out there. The bag of milk. That was like the first thing I saw. I was like, no way.
Yeah,
and of course,
yeah,
Connor
that's great.
McDavid takes a team friendly deal. Way less than he's worth. Way less than. But let's turn the roles onto us who can never comprehend that level of money. Cam, if you had to pick one, are you doing the team friendly discount or are you going for the max contract?
You should have given me this one yesterday so I could have like tossed and turned on it all night, because this is a big decision for me and my family right now, Chris, and you're putting me on the spot.
It is.
I'd love to get some generational wealth, trickle it down a little bit, have the grandkids thanking me as they're driving around in their Lambos.
100%.
I would probably, because there's absolutely nothing on the stakes on the table right now. I think I'd go a little team friendly. I wouldn't go crazy. maybe a little Nate Mack style, maybe a little Sedin twin style, where you leave a little bit of money on the table and you hope that the rest of the boys in the locker room do the same thing, so you can really build a contender. But I'm not leaving too much. I still want that value, but I don't think it would be that important to me to be like, I need to be the highest paid guy in the league, because at the end of the day, it's like, you want to win. You're going to get paid. If you're that good, you're going to have money. You're going to have a lot of it. So it's like, championships last forever, but that extra bottle of Dom at the table, it goes down pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think you're almost making an investment when you take the team friendly deal, right? Like, you're basically saying, well, I'm making sure that we win the Stanley Cup, and that hopefully then propels me to whatever, and not like wealth for the rest of my life. My autographs are more valuable.
Yeah.
My speaking engagements are more valuable. Like, there's a lot to that. But if you were to ask me, and I don't think it's right to call it selfish for a player to take, like, Kaprizov's been absolutely bombarded because of what McDavid did. But the thing is, in the like, everything is situational. And if Kirill Kaprizov had that team over a barrel, even more than McDavid had the Oilers over, as much as people might not want to say that, it's just like, if Kaprizov leaves, everything crumbles in terms of wherever Minnesota is going next. And he had, so to me, I also think that there's a part of me that owes it to my fellow players to maximize the earnings. Hey, these owners have been tamping down these salaries for long enough. Can I reset the market here? As we've seen, Kaprizov didn't reset the market. You got that Jack Eichel deal at 13.5 over long term is gonna look fine too in the new cap world. But for the same reasons you said, like, there's certain things that I'm going to need to do. And I'm just going to say, hey, if I'm making this amount of money, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that whatever I'm living up to it. And I'm trying to, we're still trying to win the Stanley Cup and everything else. In the cap world, you do have to make some sacrifices, but I just think if you only get so much time to make this money, and the times that these guys have to, when they have the hammer, like Kaprizov did, you got to use it sometimes. I would use it. And that's why Cam's going to win a Stanley Cup and I'm not. So
in this world, I feel like I'm talking like I'm McDavid, where I'm like, I am one of the best. If I'm, like I just tweeted a minute ago, Adrian Kempe, right? Like I'm told that they were looking for something in the 10s, and now all of a sudden Kaprizov signs for this, Eichel signs for that. Like, all these big numbers are coming out. And now it's like, he's probably looking closer to 12 in those high 11s. Right. And it's like, good for him. Good for him, right? This guy scored 40. He's got a couple 35 goal seasons under his belt. And he knows that this is a retirement contract and it's hitting at a really nice time. So why settle for something that starts with a 10 when the team needs you, right? LA can't afford to let Adrian Kempe walk away. And he's not a superstar, but he's maximizing his value, because it's like, you're right. You only get so many chances to get that bag.
Yeah, the situation is going to dictate it. And sometimes it takes luck to even get into that position because of the timing of, what if the salary cap doesn't go up and all these guys are coming up, like, what if team values aren't at where they're at now? So there's so few things that you can predict. I mean, like, do I think that over the lifetime of his next however many contracts, like we talked about it, like, let's just let him get, like, if McDavid just starts taking like 1 years and like mercenary contracts and different things, like, let's sick. Go, like, let's have some fun with it. But yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it. So Cam, before we get out of here, what's going on over at Elite Prospects? What we got cooking? And you're about to head off to Sweden.
Yeah. Taking off to Sweden here in a couple of days. It's going to be great. I just got word that, I'm going to play a little 3-on-3 tourney with those Djurgården boys. So it's like going to be a bunch of NHL first rounders, top pros, and then Big Daddy Cambo sliding in their beer league style. So hopefully they're going about 12%, and I can go like 85% and not make a complete fool of myself. So we'll be having a lot of fun over there. I'll get to scout some games, obviously, and do some work. And we'll be churning out some content out of Sweden next week for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm jealous. Love going to Sweden. Always a great visit, and certainly Djurgården's games look absolutely bananas fun to be at. So I can't wait for you to be able to experience that as well. Over for us on FloHockey, like I said, we got the AHL starting up next week. It'll be the ECHL. I'm going to be heading out to Greensboro, North Carolina, to watch the first games of the Greensboro Gargoyles. The Spit and Chicklets guys are part owners of that team, so we'll have a lot of content coming off of that exciting week. So I will be out next week, and so will Cam. That means we're going to take a 1-week break on Called Up. So there will be no new episode next week. So hold on to this one for your dear life. Listen to it in chunks if you must, but listen to it all. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another edition of Called Up the Prospects podcast. But folks, that is going to do it for us. Make sure you are subscribed. You are rating and reviewing. You're commenting. You're watching us on YouTube. You're watching us on the Flow Sports app. We got so much stuff coming up. So we'll see you in a few weeks. We got lots more to talk about. 2026 NHL Draft, CHL USA Top Prospects, all sorts of things coming up in the next few weeks. So we will have it all for you here on Called Up the Prospects podcast. For my pal Cam Robinson, I'm Chris Peters. We'll see you next time.
That's all good.
Well, I gave you like 3 false starts.